Hello all, welcome to the next video lecture on storage area networks. So the first topic that we are going to discuss today are the fabric services. All the fiber channel switches provide a common set of services as defined in the fiber channel standards. Now these services are available at certain predefined addresses. Now some of these services as it is shown in the figure, so we have the fabric login server, the fabric controller, the name server, management server, and so on. Each is having its own predefined addresses or available at predefined set of addresses. The fabric login server is located at the predefined address FFFFE and is used during the initial part of the node's fabric login process. The name server is located at a predefined address, so FFFFC, and is responsible for name registration and management of node ports. Each switch exchanges its name server information with the other switches in the fabric to maintain a synchronized and distributed name service. Each switch has a fabric controller. The fabric controller provides services to both the node ports and other switches. The fabric controller is responsible for managing and distributing registered state change notification, or we refer to them as RCSN or RSCN, to the node ports registered with the fabric controller. If there is a change in the fabric, remote state change notifications are sent out by a switch to the attached node ports. The fabric controller also generates a switch registered registered state change notification, or RSCNs, so to the corresponding or to every other domain in the fabric or to every other switch in the fabric. These RSCNs keep the name server up to date on all switches in the fabric. So we have the fabric login service, the fabric controller service, the name service, as well as the management service. Now let us look at what do we mean by zoning in fiber channel storage area network. As we can see in this particular diagram, we can logically segment a storage area network into zones. Each and every logical segment that we have created, we call them as zones. Let us see what do we mean by zoning, what are the components of zone, the types of zoning, and so on. Zoning is a fiber channel switch function that enables nodes within the fabric to be logically segmented into groups that can communicate with each other. It's basically a segmentation of the storage area networks into groups of nodes that can communicate with each other. When a device logs onto the fabric, it is registered with a name server. When a port logs onto a fabric, it goes through a device discovery process with other devices registered in the name server. The zoning function controls this process by allowing only the members in the same zone to establish these link level services. So remember, zoning is a fiber channel switch function that enables the nodes within the fabric to be logically segmented into groups that can communicate with each other. Multiple zone sets can be defined in a fabric, but only one zone set can be active at a time. A zone set is a set of zones and a zone is a set of members. So collection of members, which is basically a nodes. So nodes are also called as members. So they are used to form one zone, and a set of zone is called as a zone set. So multiple zones may be defined in a fabric, but only one zone set can be active at a time. A member may be in multiple zones. There is no rule that a member has to participate or member has to be a part of only one zone. A member can be a part of more than one zone. Members, zone, and zone sets form hierarchy defined in the zoning process. As we can see here, so we have the members which are used to form the zones, which in turn form the zone set. So we have a hierarchical structure. We call them as zoning components, the zone sets, the zone, as well as the members. Members are nodes within the SAN that can be included in a zone. Zones comprise a set of members that have access to one another. A port or a node can be a member of multiple zones as well. Zone sets or zone configurations comprise a group of zones that can be activated or deactivated as a single entity in a fabric. Now these zone sets, which comprise of a group of zones, can be activated or deactivated. Only one zone set per fabric can be active at a time. So here we have again the hierarchical arrangement of members zone and the zone set. We call them as zoning components. Now let us look at what are the types of zoning we have. There are three types of zoning, namely port zoning, worldwide name zoning, and the mixed zoning. Let us first try to see what is this port zoning. Port zoning uses the fiber channel addresses of the physical ports to define the zones. Access to data is determined by the physical switch port to which a node is connected. The fiber channel address is dynamically assigned when the port logs on to the fabric. Therefore, any change in the fabric configuration affects the zoning. So this port zoning is formed, or port zone is formed, taking into account the fiber channel address of the physical ports. Port zoning is also called as hard zoning. So there's one more name for this port zoning, it's called as hard zoning. It requires updating of zoning configuration information in the event of fabric reconfiguration. If the switch needs to be reconfigured, then the zoning configuration information should be updated in port zoning. Remember, port zoning uses the FC addresses of the physical ports to define the zones. The second type of zoning we have is worldwide name zoning, or WWN zoning. It uses the worldwide names to define the zones. The worldwide name zoning is also referred to as soft zoning. A major advantage of worldwide name zoning is its flexibility. That is, it allows SAN to be recabled without reconfiguring the zone information. This is possible because the worldwide name is static to the node port. Unlike the FC addresses which are assigned dynamically, these worldwide names, or WWN, is static to the node port. Hence, no reconfiguration to the zone information is required. Okay. So that is the second type of zoning, called as worldwide name zoning. It's also called as soft zoning. So if you remember, so there are two types of addresses in, or two types of identifiers in storage area network. We have the fiber channel addresses as well as the worldwide names. Now let us look at the third type of zoning. We call it as mixed zoning. As the name suggests, it combines the qualities of both the worldwide name zoning and the port zoning. Using mixed zoning enables a specific port to be tied to the worldwide name of a node. This diagram illustrates the different types of zoning. We have a bunch of servers which are connected to a storage array using a fiber channel storage area network. So these are all the worldwide names of the servers or the hosts. So these are all the ports that is present on the switch. We have a switch here as an interconnecting device. Let us consider the first zone, zone 1. So this is the zone 1. It uses the worldwide names of the storage array as well as the servers. So this is a worldwide name zone which uses only the worldwide names to form one zone. So this one segment of the SAN, it can be treated as worldwide name zone. So zone 1 is a WWN zone which uses the worldwide names of the server and the storage array. Now let us look at the second zone, zone 2. This is an example for port zone because it uses only the FC addresses of these ports here. Okay, it uses the fiber channel addresses of the ports which are dynamically assigned. So hence this zone 2 can be treated as a port zone. Now if you look at this zone, zone 3, now this is an example for mixed zone. It takes into account the worldwide name of the server and the FC address of the port here. So this zone 3 is an example for mixed zone. Now let us look at the different fabric fiber channel login types. There are three types of fiber channel login types. We have the fabric login, the port login, and the process login. Fabric login is performed between a node port and a fabric port. To log on to a fabric, a device sends a floggy frame with the worldwide node name and the worldwide port name parameters to the login service at the well-known fiber channel address. Now this in turn causes the switch to accept the login and returns an accept frame with the assigned fiber channel address for the device. So immediately after the fiber login or fabric login or the floggy, the node port registers itself with the local name server on the switch, indicating its worldwide node name, the worldwide port name, as well as the assigned fiber channel addresses. So this fabric login, it is performed between an N port and an F port. The second type of login we have is something called as plogin or port login. It is performed between an endpoint and another endpoint to establish a session. The initiator endpoint sends a plogin request frame to the target node port, which accepts it. The target node port returns an accept frame to the initiator endpoint. Next, the endpoints exchange service parameters related or relevant to the session. So this port login, it is performed between two node ports to establish a session. The third type of login we have is called as process login. It is also called as PRLI. It is also performed between an endpoint and one more endpoint. So this login relates to the fiber channel layer 4 or upper layer protocols such as SCSI. Node ports exchange SCSI 3 related service parameters. The node ports share information about the fiber channel 4 type in use, the SCSI initiator or the target. So remember, there are three types of logins. We have the fabric login, the port login and the process. Now let us look at the fabric topology or the different ways in which we can connect the interconnecting devices in a fiber channel storage area network. Let us first try to understand what do you mean by core edge fabric topology. The core edge fabric topology has two types of switch tiers as it is shown in this diagrams. There is the edge tier and there is a core tier. The edge tier is usually composed of switches and offers an inexpensive approach to adding more hosts in a fabric. Each switch at the edge tier is attached to a switch at the core tier through inter-switch links or the ISLs. The core tier is usually composed of enterprise directors that ensure high fabric availability. So in addition, all traffic must either traverse through this core tier or terminate at this particular tier. So in this core edge fabric configuration, all storage devices are connected to the core tier, enabling host to storage traffic to traverse only through one interswitch link. As we can see, there is only one interswitch link if we are using this edge and the core tier or the core edge fabric. Hosts that require high performance may be directly connected to the core tier and consequently avoid interswitch link delays. In core edge topology, the edge tier switches are not connected to each other. This is what we need to observe here. The fiber channel switches are not connected to each other directly. They are only connected to the edge tiers or the directors. In the core edge topology, the core edge fabric topology increases connectivity with the SAN while conserving the overall port utilization. If the fabric expansion is required, additional edge switches are connected to the core. The core of the fabric is also extended by adding more directors at the core tier, as it is shown in this second diagram. It's an example for dual core topology where we have two directors at the core tier. So this topology has different variations such as single core topology, dual core topology and so on, depending upon the number of directors that is used at the core tier. To transform a single core topology to dual core, new interswitch links are created to connect each edge switch to the new core switch in the fabric. As it is shown in this diagram, whenever you add a new director, new interswitch links should be created between the existing switches at the edge tier as well as the directors present at the core tier. What are the benefits of core edge fabric topology? It offers high availability, medium scalability and medium to maximum connectivity. So that is the core edge fabric topology of SAN. Now let us look at the second topology, that is the mesh topology. A mesh topology may be one of the two types. It may be a full mesh or it may be a partial mesh, as it is shown in the diagrams here. The one on the left represents the full mesh topology and the diagram on the right represents the partial mesh topology. In a full mesh topology, every switch is connected to every other switch in the topology. A full mesh topology may be appropriate when the number of switches involved is relatively small. A typical deployment would involve up to 4 switches or directors, with each of them servicing highly localized host to storage traffic. In full mesh topology, the maximum of one interswitch link or hop is required for host to host to storage traffic. So maximum of one hop or one interswitch link is required for host to storage traffic. However, with the increase in the number of switches, the number of switch ports used for interswitch links also increases. This reduces the available switch ports for node connectivity. So that is your full mesh topology. Now in partial mesh topology, that is shown in the diagram on the left, several hops or interswitch links may be required for the traffic to reach its destination. Partial mesh offers more scalability than full mesh topology. However, with proper placement of host and storage devices, traffic management in partial mesh fabric may be complicated and interswitch links could become overloaded due to excessive traffic aggregation. Okay, that is the full mesh topology. So mesh topology can be of two types. It can be either partial or full mesh. So all switches will be connected to each other. Host and storage can be located anywhere in the fabric. Host and storage can also be localized to a single switch. So that is your mesh topology. Let us try to understand what we mean by block level storage virtualization. Block level storage virtualization aggregates block level storage devices, that is the logical unit or the LUNs, and enables provisioning of virtual storage volumes independent of the underlying physical storage. So irrespective of what is the physical storage that we have, block level storage virtualization aggregates these LUNs and enables provisioning of virtual storage volumes. A virtualization layer, as it is shown in the diagram, a virtualization layer exists at the SAN. It abstracts the identity of the physical devices and creates a pool from heterogeneous storage devices. So there is an abstraction layer, or we call it as a virtualization layer, that abstracts the identity of the physical storage devices. Virtual volumes are created from the storage pool and assigned to the host. Instead of being directed to the LUNs on the individual storage arrays, the hosts are directed to the virtual volumes provided by the virtualization layer. For hosts and storage arrays, the virtualization layer appears as a target and initiator devices respectively. Okay, for the hosts, we have the hosts here in these diagrams. For these servers and the storage arrays, the virtualization layer appears as a target or the initiator. What does this mean? Is storage array can see only up to this level. Okay, if this is the initiator, the virtualization appliance acts as a target. Now if this virtualization appliance is a initiator, the server will be the target. Okay, the servers and the storage arrays can see the virtualization appliance either as an initiator or a target device. The virtualization layer maps the virtual volumes to the logical unit numbers or the LUNs on the individual arrays. The host remain unaware of the mapping operation and access virtual volumes as if they were accessing the physical storage that was attached to them. Even though the servers are accessing these virtual volumes, the servers will get a view that they are working with the actual physical storage devices. But in reality, they are just working, or they just access one LUN that is mapped to them. This mapping is done by the virtualization layer or the virtualization appliance. The hosts remain unaware of the mapping operation and access the virtual volumes as if they were accessing the physical storage that were attached to them. The virtualization layer is managed through a dedicated virtualization appliance to which the host and the storage arrays are connected. Okay, the virtualization layer is managed through a dedicated virtualization appliance. We need to have a new device called as a virtualization appliance, which creates this virtualization layer to which the storage arrays and the hosts are connected. Now in this figure, it illustrates a virtualized environment. It shows two physical servers, each of which has one virtual volume that is assigned to it. These virtual volumes are used by the servers. These virtual volumes are mapped to the logical unit numbers in the storage arrays, as it is represented in the diagram. When an input-output is sent to the virtual volume, it is redirected through the virtualization layer at the storage network to the mapped LUNs. So we have the LUNs in these storage arrays. So whenever an IO is sent to the virtual volume, it is redirected to the virtualization layer at the storage network to the mapped LUNs at the storage arrays. Depending upon the capabilities of the virtualization appliance, the architecture may allow for more complex mapping between the array LUNs and the virtual volumes. Block level virtualization enables extending the storage volumes online to meet the growth requirements. So it offers or it provides the capability to extend the storage volumes online without disrupting the ongoing business operations. So downtime will not be faced. There will not be any uh, duration when which the data is not available. Okay, data will always be available even when the storage is being extended. It consolidates heterogeneous storage arrays and enables transparent volume access. Block level virtualization also provides the advantage of non-disruptive data migration. So we can migrate the data from one LUN to other LUN or from one storage array to other storage array in a non-disruptive way. In traditional SAN environment, LUN migration from one array to another is an offline event because the host needs to be updated to reflect any new array configuration. In other instances, host CPU cycles were required to migrate the data from one array to another, especially in multi-vendor environment. Now with the introduction of this block level virtualization, the virtualization layer handles the backend migration of data, which enables LUNs to remain online and accessible while the data is migrating. So even when we are migrating the data, or even when there is a migration of data between the storage arrays from one storage array to another, data will still be accessible by the host. Hence it is called as non-disruptive data migration. No physical changes are required because the host still points to the same virtual targets on the virtualization layer. However, the mappings information on the virtualization layer should be changed. These changes can be executed dynamically and are transparent to the end user. Earlier, the block level storage virtualization provided non-disruptive data migration only within one data center. Now the new generation block level virtualization appliances, they enable non-disruptive data migration both within a data center and also between different data centers. It provides the capability to connect to the virtualization layers at multiple data centers. The connectivity virtualization layers are managed centrally and work as a single virtualization layer that is stretched across data centers. Okay, this enables the federation of block level storage resources both within and across the data centers. The virtualizations are created from the federated storage resources as it is shown in this diagram. We can have a virtualization layer that spans across more than one data center. Okay, so it enables non-disruptive data migration both within and between the data centers. The virtualization layers are managed centrally and work as a single virtualization layer that is stretched across the data centers. So that is your block level virtualization in storage area network.